Hello and welcome to episode 50 of the Coming of Cage podcast, your Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Derek, and your other host, Ryan, is right here,
Right here. I've been here the whole time.
all 50 times.
That's right.
Can you believe it, man? 50 movies.
Episode 50. I know. Next, we don't even have another milestone until 100, so we have to double where we're at.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Hmm.
There's plenty of movies to watch,
We'll have the light at the end of the tunnel showing when we get to that point.
I mean, I would think so. It's about 2 years away. Who knows how many more movies he'll do in that time frame?
That's
But
true. Well, he's retired now, right? So,
as he churns out more. He just signed, like they
yeah,
announced something else that he's in, some Jesus horror movie or whatever.
right.
I don't know. And we Arcadian, is it Arcadian or
Yeah.
that movie just hit streaming, so that's brand new and
So you can add that to our list to go on the wheel.
it will be included at the end here when we do all that fun stuff. But we are here today though to talk about the 1983 romantic comedy Valley Girl,
That's right.
starring Nicolas Cage, Deborah Foreman, Elizabeth Daily, who people probably know as E.G. Daily. She's a voice actor. Michael Bowen, Cameron Dye, Heidi Holliker, yada yada yada. Really, it's just Nicolas Cage and E.G. Daily that I knew, as well as Colleen Camp, who is in Clue for people who are interested in that movie. So that's it. This is about Julie, a girl from the valley, meets Randy, a punk from the city. They are from different worlds and find love. Somehow they need to stay together in spite of her trendy, shallow friends.
Yeah, and that really basically is the plot. It's very thin.
That's the movie. That
So
is
yeah, I mean, right out of the gate, Derek, I have to ask, did you notice any similarities to any other movies we've watched recently? Did
like
you
Fast
find
Times.
Yeah, it felt like especially like the intro, like it felt okay, so Fast Times was 82, this movie was 83. It felt like Nick maybe like wasn't happy with the fact that he was just in the background of Fast Times, so he was like, well, I'm gonna do my own Fast Times, and then this
Well,
is what came out of it because there's just a lot of similarities.
100%. This is actually the very next movie he did after Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
So this would be his first movie as Nick Cage.
This is the first movie he was ever credited as Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
That is correct. And this was just 1 year before Racing with the Moon, which we covered a while back, and The Cotton Club, which we also covered a while back. So he did this. Rumblefish came out the same year, and then he did Racing with the Moon and The Cotton Club. So like two really like banner years to kick off his career because this is a leading role.
Yeah, for sure. I think in a lot of ways that this movie, I actually prefer it to Fast Times. I mean, there was a lot of things I didn't like about this movie too, but I mean, both of them. One of the biggest similarities is that there's a paper thin plot to both of them. I mean, both at this point, of the world and where we're at, these movies are basically worth watching as a slice of life in the '80s type movies, where if you want to feel nostalgic about what the world was like in the '80s, these movies are good for that. And there's
Yeah,
some people that really love these movies. I don't know that I could say I loved either one, but they're very similar.
I agree with you. I definitely, if I had to pick between the two, I would pick this one every single time.
Yeah, me too.
The director, Martha Coolidge, she did note that this was supposed to be originally an exploitation film, so like a TNA style film. Uh, but apparently the backers were happy that she delivered, quote, a real movie
Okay.
for what that's worth.
I definitely felt like Fast Times was more of a TNA type movie.
Then this is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Except it was like super uncomfortable because it was all underage. In this movie, there was some underage, potentially underage stuff too, but in that movie, it was explicitly underage. They say their age. This movie, they don't really say their age,
Well, they're high schoolers,
but you could be 18 in high school too. So, I mean, you know what
but
I
they're going
mean?
to junior prom.
I mean, that's true. But
I mean,
they don't, but in Fast Times, though, they're like, I'm 16. You know
yeah,
what I mean? They like flat out say it, where in this movie, it's not quite as blatant, but
that's
yeah.
certainly fair.
Um, So yeah, the way we usually do this podcast is that I take notes throughout the movie and kind of in chronological order, and we kind of go through all the interesting points, some more interesting than others. Um, and I try and remember what I meant by whatever the note is, which is, varying levels of success with that. But yeah, right out of the gate, the like whole opening credits is a really shaky helicopter shot, like
I
super
hated it.
shaky, and it's so long.
Oh my God. I actually
It's like
said
four
something
and a
that
half minutes of just like shaky helicopter shots of the valley.
it was kind of making me dizzy. I really hated it.
It was not good, yeah. I mean, it was not enjoyable. That's why I made a note of it because it's the note started out as shaky helicopter shot, and then I did dash long afterwards because it kept going and kept going. But yeah, that was not great.
No.
And then just like just like Fast Times, we get the opening like montage of the shopping mall, which was great. I mean, I enjoyed that in Fast Times, and I also enjoyed it in this movie. It's nice to kind of remember what those things used to be like since malls are basically dead at this point.
So sad.
There's some, but I mean, really, they're not what they were 20 years ago
No, certainly.
or in the 90s. Yeah, my next note was similar to Fast Times. At that point, it felt a lot like Fast Times. That
Mhm.
didn't really leave throughout the movie, that feeling. But
Yeah, I mean, we spend less time in school
yeah,
in Valley Girl, but the vibe is extremely similar.
for sure. Um, we go to the beach like early on in the movie. There's a bunch of girls on the beach and they're talking about boys and like making out with boys, and that's basically all women talk about in this movie.
Dude, I don't know that any of the high school kids have any conversation that doesn't have to do with dating,
Or what they want to do to the opposite gender.
which I put into kind of
Yeah,
that same category. Right? I really don't think of like any of them have any other conversation.
right. No, I think that's probably accurate.
It was
But
mind-boggling.
on this beach, we get our first shot of the glorious Nicolas Cage in his all his young, supple-bodied glory.
He
He
looks
does have
good.
weird chest hair in this one. Did you notice that? It looks like
Yes.
it reminded me of the Nightwing symbol. Like it looked like he had a Nightwing symbol in just his chest hair. So I don't know if
Well,
he
he's a
cut it in
fan.
that way or if he grew it in naturally that or like that or what. But
I don't recall seeing that in any of his other movies.
no, I don't
But he
either.
usually shaves his chest in his other movies where
No,
his
not
shirt is off.
always.
Not always, but I don't know. Maybe it's
We
just because he
usually
was
get a
young.
lot of peeking chest hair from the top.
Yeah. Maybe it
Um,
filled in as he got older. I don't know.
One thing I did notice, and I'm not trying to shame anybody on this, but it does seem like he maybe took the profits from this movie and had some work done. Did you notice that?
Yes, so he did. He quote fixed his teeth after this movie.
He did seem like he was embarrassed. Like a lot of his mannerisms are much different than what we're used to.
Hmm.
Like he was scared to really fully smile or was trying to hide his teeth in a lot of it. So it's definitely a source of shame for him. So good for him for getting that fixed so that he feels better and was able to express himself, and turn himself into the actor that we know and love now. But he did have some like cagey moments in this, and
Sure.
but in general, like his normal acting facial expressions, I thought were much different and much more subdued because of that. He was obviously trying to hide that. So good on him. I'm glad he was able to make himself feel better.
But what's interesting is he was, how he's just so deeply dedicated to every movie that he's in. That is from the beginning. He slept in his car during the entire shoot to help keep himself in that randy, authentic kind of feel of a character. And that was like in his first leading role movie.
Yeah,
I mean, he's 21, give or take, I guess 20 probably when it was being filmed, right? And that was still his mentality even then, was to be like just that, like all in
yeah,
on the production.
not surprising. I mean, it seems like he's always had that work ethic. So.
Hmm.
Um, So we start to, get to meet more of our protagonist, who is Julie. Is that her name?
Yes. Man,
Um,
I had such a hard time figuring out people's names other than
yeah,
Fred because they say Fred's name like 18,000 times. But yes, Julie, played by Deborah Foreman. She's the
yes.
lead.
She is recently broken up with her boyfriend
Yes.
and is newly single.
Tommy.
Um, and I think at this point, so my next note is about something creepy that the dad says, but they're at the house and they're getting ready to go out, I think maybe to a party.
Hmm.
And so like basically well, first the way they get dressed up for the party, like one of them, it's her and her friend, they're getting dressed up for the party, and her friend dresses in kind of the traditional, what you would when you think about like what an 80s girl would wear to a party. It's very much that. But then Julie, like when she's trying to get all sexy, it looks like she's putting on a blouse from like a 1940s librarian. Did you notice that? It was just very weird choice.
I mean, I noticed it. I don't know if that's how my brain cataloged it per se, but I definitely see it now.
I mean, knowing that her backstory in this is that she works with her parents at like this health food they call it a health she calls it a health food store, but it's a restaurant. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
they sell vitamins, I guess.
right. So I'm guessing it's kind of like I don't know, cloistered kind of living. I don't know. Maybe they do let her do whatever she wants, so maybe she's just doing something rebellious to the style. I don't know. It was a little weird. But they when they're getting ready to go out to this party, her dad, says to her friend, "Wow, you guys look great. If I were 20 years younger,"
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
which is, I mean, he's not like the only person to ever say that in a movie, but it is not something that any dad should say to
I would
a
hope not.
daughter's friend or a daughter, you know, anything like that.
Yeah.
It was just a very awkward, and there's a good amount of that in this movie, like really things that did not age well. I mean, I don't think they were probably that appropriate back when this movie came out, but you know, 83 was before I was born, just barely. So maybe the year of my birth, everything changed.
When
Um,
you were born, things shifted.
Yeah. One style thing, that's my next note. One style thing that I noticed in this movie that I don't remember being a thing in the 80s, and it maybe was more of a regional thing, was the sunglasses hanging around the neck. There's lots of that in this movie. You know, it's kind of like when you picture like a grandma getting ready to drive and they have like the necklace that has like the things on it for the sunglasses so they can just pull it up. But these are all like young kids.
Maybe that just never made it to the Midwest because we
That's
had
what
that
I'm
on the East
thinking.
Coast.
Yeah, it was a regional thing, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
My parents definitely did that.
well, I mean, I don't remember young people doing that in the 80s, or maybe that's just not something that was portrayed very much in media. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I was like, why are all these young people doing this old person thing? And I thought it was just like this one group maybe that was doing it, but no, throughout the movie, I think Julie does it for a while, and a couple other characters do it for a while.
Well,
So
maybe it's just Valley people.
it might be, yeah, because you don't really ever see the goth kids or whatever they're called, or
Punk. They're
whatever
the punk
punk,
kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. It wasn't goth back then, but
I mean,
um,
this movie is desperately trying to show a difference between these two groups of people, and like other than one dude with spiked hair, they all look like regular people.
pretty
I
much,
don't
yeah.
know.
But Nick Cage and his friend always match.
That was
Um,
that was like, oh, that's adorable. They
yeah,
coordinated.
and we'll get into the party here. My first note about the party is party sushi.
With like peanut butter on it or
Yeah, so
something.
they talk about how they're serving sushi, and at one point one of them goes through and like talks about the different types of sushi in there. But yeah, you watch them like pulling peanut butter out of a jar and
Ugh.
putting on the sushi. I
Oh.
mean, and granted, in '83, sushi was pretty new to the U.S., I think, so they were really like,
So it was a big
you know,
deal that they had. Is that why they
yeah,
had a sushi party? Because it was like a big
probably.
thing. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a sushi party. I put party sushi because I thought it was funny. I've never been to a party where people were serving sushi, but I would go to that. I do like sushi, so Derek, keep that note.
I will. Yeah, I'll
But
remember. I like sushi a lot. Peanut butter on sushi
Yeah, don't do
is
that.
that's
I won't
no.
come to the party if you're doing that. Also, like, I worry about the fact that there was no refrigeration shown at all. It's literally just all sitting out.
I mean, I'm assuming it was refrigerated like shortly before the party, and
Right, but they're all little rolls, so I mean, it's not going to take that long for it to hit room temperature.
well,
And
you know, the '80s were a more carefree
that's
time.
true. That's true. Um, so her friend, we get to meet her friend's dad and stepmom at this
Are those
party.
Susie's parents or Stacy's parents?
I don't
Susie's, I
remember.
think. I think it's
But
Susie's parents.
my first instinct with the stepmom was that she looked fucking horny for these
Oh
teenage
man.
boys.
Oh
Right?
man.
Did you get that right out of the gate too?
I mean, pretty quickly. Like the moment she meets the boy,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is where the movie is going.
Yeah, she's a pedophile.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
a
mean,
weird
theoretically, I guess it never pays off. So
yeah, it's just a weird like a plot
not
line
to,
the movie
yeah.
could have gotten cut completely and it wouldn't have changed the movie at all.
Well, they don't even resolve it.
That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
it added nothing to the movie.
nothing.
Anyway, yeah, so she's like eye fucking a bunch of the guys, particularly one, but she's definitely like, undressing with her eyes a bunch of the guys at this party. These high school
Skip.
boys.
She really likes Skip.
She likes Skip, yeah.
That's his name.
And so, we're also getting to know some of the protagonist's friends a little bit.
Hmm.
And one of them is hooking up with her ex in
Lauren.
a
Yeah.
bedroom, and we get nudity, which is a space on our bingo card.
Yeah, that's
Um,
E.G. Daily. She voices Tommy Pickles from the Rugrats. That's how I knew her.
yeah, she had them things out, um, and they're getting ready to do it, and then they don't do it. And yeah, basically, there's a lot of stuff set up to show that her ex is just kind of a scumbag.
Hmm. But
And
this never
most,
comes back either.
no, they set this up to be like some sort of drama point that's going to happen later in the movie when the main girl finds out, but she never does. It's never a thing.
No, and so I actually watched this with Ray, my wife. She doesn't watch too many of these with me, and she thought that it was going to come out at like this diner scene that's later in the movie. So
Yeah,
like when that didn't happen, she was like, "So there's nothing then? There's just no point to
nothing.
that happened."
Yeah.
I do have a question for you about Tommy, the ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
Okay, did he at all to you look like Will Forte? Like he was like
Yes.
he
Yeah.
could be
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
related? Okay,
I could see that. But
okay.
also, like I feel like when they were like screening actors for that role,
Hmm.
they just had them scowl and stare for like minutes because that's like 80% of what this role was. He would just be across the room staring and scowling at people.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty
That was his
much
entire role in the movie, other than like feeling this one girl up.
that's fair.
Yeah. At one point, so my next note was, is this party the whole movie? Because it seemed like the party was going on a really long time, and I still hadn't figured out what the hell the plot was supposed to be.
But that would have been really interesting though if that was the entire
Yeah,
movie took place at the party.
exactly. Like you just, yeah, that they should redo a movie like that. But yeah, no, it wasn't like that. Nick Cage and his friend, who are the weirdos, but they show up wearing like black matching red and black outfits.
It was adorable.
Um, I don't really know what's supposed to make them weird. They just maybe because they aren't like wearing the exact same stuff as everybody else. They're wearing like slightly more drab colors.
Well, this was the big difference. So the Valley people are all wearing like bright pastel colors. They all have like regular like hair colors, hair cuts. It's all they're very kind of mainstream, right? And then Randy and Fred come in and they've both got like colors in their hair, and Nick's got like this crazy like flocked hairdo the whole time. I mean, his hair looks awesome in
Oh
this
yeah,
movie,
big
you know.
fan.
And yeah, they're wearing like solid black and red. It's very dramatic, and at first I was like, are these guys supposed to be like older? Maybe that's what it is or something, but no, they're also in high school. So again, like I feel
But
like
they're
the
not from
movie.
the valley. That's the big thing
No.
is like everybody else here that's partying is from like the high school, one of the high schools in the valley. and these two guys are not.
No, they're from Hollywood because apparently, I guess there's a difference. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah. So I was watching this obviously with my girlfriend. I watch all these with my girlfriend, but her thing that she noticed was Nick Cage's belt.
Yes, it was huge.
It was huge. It was weird looking. I still haven't quite figured out what it is, but also he wears that same belt with almost every outfit in this movie.
Yes.
I guess they had a limited budget for, accessories, but yeah, it was interesting that that was his go-to belt as this character for every single outfit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, then we get a cage match. Nick is flirting with Julie a little bit and, talking to her, and then the ex scowls at him across the room for a few minutes, which is, a running gag throughout the whole movie. And then comes over and just punches him in the face. It's not really a fight because he just kind of sucker punches him. Um,
Well, he's got like three friends like
yeah,
grabbing onto Nick and stuff. It's a very kind of very stereotypical. This is the bad guy bully fight scene.
teen, yeah, 80s teen movie thing, yeah.
Hmm.
And so also it's worth noting because this comes up later in the movie that his friend that he goes to the party with, Nick tells his friend that this other girl that's friend of Julie's was looking at him and winking or smiling or something like, so now he thinks that she's interested in him. And so that was to get his friend away from him and to get her friend away from her so that he could approach her and not have to worry about that. But at this point, it's not that big a deal. But that kind of there's some weird stuff with that relationship throughout the movie. So I think it's important to note that that's when this started.
Hmm.
So yeah, we get the cage fight. Um, yeah, they get kicked out of the party, and as they're like outside, pissed off about it, getting ready to leave, you can see Julie like looking through the blinds at the two of them, or staring at Nick specifically, and he's staring back, watching her through the blinds, and then you just get this really dramatic, slow closing of the blinds. Like she's like, I got to be really dramatic about this to get his attention, and so she slowly pulls the thing just for perfect dramatic timing to close the blinds. I thought that was funny. And so they leave, and he gets pissed off. He's driving. They're driving his friend's mom's car
Hmm.
and he has him pull over. He's like, he's getting mad. He's kicking everything. And he's like, we got to go back. And he gets in to drive the mom's car. And it turns out the mom's car is basically his car because he drives it
Just takes it.
throughout this movie whenever he wants, basically. So yeah, they go back to the party and he sneaks in through a bathroom window that's open,
Hmm.
hides in a shower, and
For a
then
while.
for a long while and spies on people that are doing things in the bathroom.
Yes.
And at this point, it's kind of unclear what he's waiting for. Is he waiting for this
Thank
girl to
you.
come in? Is he waiting for a chance to where he can leave the bathroom and like re-enter the party? What's he waiting for?
I
And
thought maybe
even
he was waiting for Tommy so he could like jump Tommy,
maybe
you know?
I didn't really think that one, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was unclear what he's waiting for. And even when the situation resolves itself, it's still unclear if it's what he was actually waiting for. So the girl Julie, comes into the bathroom and is like checking her makeup in the mirror, and he just creeps out behind her. I mean, it is weird, like creepy weird. If this was a real life situation, I feel like he would have gotten maced.
But Julie is a
She's
fan.
into it.
Yeah.
She's into it. Yeah, she loves being creeped on by guys that she barely knows. And yeah, so he talks to her and tells her that oh, he does finger guns in the shower at one point. I forgot to mention that.
Well, because like he's like stuck in there for so long, he clearly wasn't intending to be in there that long, and he's just bored out of his mind.
Yeah. And so he talks to her and he's like, okay, well, you got to go with us. We're going to go have fun tonight. And she's like, no, I can't. I can't. Okay, I'll do it. And so he exits out the window again and she leaves with her friend. She drags her friend. Her friend has no interest in going,
No,
and she drags her friend with her.
this
And
is like bonkers to me. that she's interested at all. Like she just met this dude, watched him get, beat up at the party or whatever, and now she's gonna go off with him in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was the early 80s and all, so maybe I just
Yeah,
don't have the
it
right
was like the
perspective.
Wild West out there, man, in the valley. But yeah, so he's driving again and takes her to or they start driving around like through these streets where apparently he knows every single person that exists on these streets in the middle of the night because
Everybody.
everybody on the streets is like, "Hey, man!" and he's like waving to them, and he's like having conversations or like inside jokes with people, and
As
yeah,
they're
just
driving by, so I don't know how they're having these conversations, but
dozens of people know him on the streets. Um, and yeah, so at this point, I have the note that the dude that he's friends with is
Fred,
constantly harassing her friend
Stacy. Yeah.
Stacy,
Yeah.
constantly harassing her, and it is not mutual.
There's
Like,
a whole scene that kind of makes a joke of it when they're like going around the car in circles.
yeah, so they go to a club, and she's not really into it, but he's like, "When can I see you again?" And she's like, "Well, you see me now." And kind of saying, live in this moment and enjoy this, and don't worry about the next moment. And they end up
That
leaving
was
that
deep.
club. That's how I interpreted it. It was kind of a deep, thing. People need to think about that kind of stuff more. Enjoy the moment. Put away the phone. Enjoy the moment. You might not get another one. But yeah, so then they leave this like rock live band performance and they go to like make out point or something like that and they're just sitting up there making out in the car like heavily making out and his friend and the other girl they're like he's chasing her around this car and she keeps saying no 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 and then eventually she starts laughing
Right.
and he comes up to her and kisses her and it's like that flipped really fast.
But then they're running around like a
Yeah,
minute later. So like I
yeah.
don't really know whether she was like was she into it or not. I don't understand.
Yeah, I still don't understand. It seemed like maybe it was one of those situations where she was embarrassed that she liked him, and so she was playing this way. But
Well,
I don't.
she's
It's
terrible.
hard to
I
say.
I hated her in this movie.
Did you?
This character Stacy, like she is not a good person. Like yeah, like there's this whole like Romeo and Juliet, different sides of the tracks kind of thing that they're going for here. But she's the only one who's like actively manipulative and cruel.
Yeah, she's a weird one. Yeah, her character doesn't really have any redeeming qualities.
No, none.
She's just like an antagonist. Yeah, it's very weird. So they're out all night because we see him pull up in his friend's car with his friend not there anymore. His friend's mom's car with his friend not there anymore, dropping her off. But it is like midday, it looks like. I mean, the sun is
The sun
fully
is
in the
up.
sky. And so that is awkward. So she walks in and her mom, her stepmom, or was it her stepmom? No, that was her mom.
It's her
Uh,
mom.
has her like legs behind her head and is like on the floor doing, I think it's supposed to be yoga.
I
I don't remember
guess.
that pose, but her like stuff is just, you know, there. And she's like having a serious conversation with her daughter while this is going on. They were worried about her because she was gone all night and blah blah blah.
It,
Um,
this was so weird for so that's Colleen Camp, who is to me unrecognizable.
yeah.
And it was just so weird watching this. And she's only 9 years older than Deborah Foreman, who is playing Julie, even though
Yeah,
she's
it was
playing the mom.
weird because we commented on that too that she looked like she actually looked younger than some of the girls at that high school, but the dad looked really old. He looked
Yeah,
like 50.
his haircut didn't help, but I'm with you.
Right, he had a bad haircut.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
I wonder how old. Let's see. I think it's Frederick Forrest, and so he was born in 1936, so he was almost 50,
yeah, he looked way older than his wife. So it was weird.
and he was. So that's a good call out. Good catch.
My next note is tripindicular.
did somebody say that?
Yes, Julie says describes him as tripindicular.
They
And
said
so
lots of weird
I
like
was
Ninja
curious
Turtle
about
words.
this. That is not a Ninja Turtle
No,
word.
that one's
Don't
not.
you dare besmirch the name of the
Tubular,
Ninja Turtles.
man.
This word, I was curious about it, so I looked it up to see if it was a real word that I just didn't know about. And I love the 80s. I know a lot of 80s slang. That's not one I was familiar with. I think it's regional, again, regional slang. But when you look it up, it does come up in Urban Dictionary,
Hmm.
which is not obviously a real dictionary, but it is good for learning some slang terms. And it says that this word is a synonym for the word awesome. It can be used in place of awesome to say how cool something is. For example, wow, man, that new Ferrari you just bought is totally tripendicular. So there you go.
That's
Yeah,
boss, man.
I challenge all our listeners, all seven of you, over the next 5 years that might listen to this to use the word tripendicular this week and see how it feels. Just try it on
You,
for size,
you could review our
including you, Derek.
podcast and you could call our podcast Tripindicular in your review.
Or you could just use it to make somebody think you're really weird in your daily life. And Derek, I want you to do that too. I want you to use tripendicular.
All
Find
right.
a moment, and I want you to report back to me. It doesn't have to be on the podcast, but report back to me how it goes.
I'll try.
I appreciate that. So it shows the next scene is Julie in a driver's ed situation.
Yes. What a great
Uh
scene.
it's a weird so when I did driver's ed, it wasn't really like this, but in this one, they literally have kids packed into this car. They have, I think, four students in this
Hmm.
car and one teacher.
Yeah, because there were three in the back. All four friends were in the car together, which
Yes.
maybe that's not realistic. Maybe they just did it because of the movie. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it's they're gossiping. Essentially, all these girls are gossiping and not focusing on the driving. But when Julie is driving, they're really gossiping about this guy, and the friends are talking trash or whatever, and she's telling her how she likes him. And at one point, the teacher gets so scared of the driving that the teacher dives out of the moving vehicle
Yes, it's so
to
great.
just for dramatic effect.
Jumped out of
Yeah,
a moving car, and he wasn't like a young guy either.
yeah, he
Um,
was.
Ray wanted me to note that for her, this was the funniest part of the movie was when he jumped out of the car.
Yeah, I mean, it was not unexpected for sure, but yeah, it was pretty funny.
Oh my God.
I agree with her on that.
It was
Although
hilarious.
although the drunk Nick we get later is pretty funny too.
Yes.
Um yeah, so my next note is that the stepmom does want to fuck Skip because she gets, I think it's a grocery delivery,
Yes.
which I thought was a newer thing, but apparently was happening in the 80s too.
Maybe the
Um
Valley had Uber Eats.
yeah, I guess. Yeah, they were ahead of the times, but yeah, so he's delivering her groceries and it's like in some short shorts. And she is definitely putting the moves on him. But it is funny. She isn't saying I want to fuck you, but she's
No.
definitely implying that. But he, being a man, is not really necessarily the best at receiving signals. So basically says it like three times, and then he finally starts to catch on. And by that time, she's like, "Never mind, my daughter's going to be home in like 10 minutes." And so that then he just leaves
I don't
and
know that it wasn't, I don't think it was he wasn't getting it. I think he was intimidated because he's like a kid and she's like not only
a
older,
pedophile. Yeah.
right? But she's also like a fairly accomplished person, apparently. Like she's working in like stocks or Wall Street something. She's like doing like stock trading and stuff over the phone, poolside. Like clearly she's like doing well,
Yeah,
you know? So I think he was just intimidated.
I guess. Um, so I guess we did forget to mention that when they were together that night, he asked her where she worked because he wanted to go visit her,
Mhm.
and she said that I work in my parents' store. And so we kind of touched on this earlier, but then we get a scene where she's working at the store, and it's not a store at all, it's a restaurant. So I guess in the Valley, store means something different.
I assume it's because they also sell like like vitamins and different
Do
like
they? Because I
health
mean,
things.
it's clearly a restaurant. They're serving cooked food.
I don't know. I'm trying. I don't know.
And so yeah, we got we had a question mark on this one, so you'll have to fill it in. But awkward diner scene. The scene
Oh
with
man.
her dad is in there
Yeah.
meeting
It's
the
definitely an awkward scene in a restaurant. So I would be leaning towards yes.
okay. Yeah. But yeah, this is we get kind of an awkward diner scene where he like meets the dad and she like just decides to leave. She says her schedule is flexible, so she just walks out. I'm like, I would probably like let somebody know that you're
Well, yeah, because the mom
leaving.
comes out and she's like, Where'd Julie go?" Dad's
Yeah,
like,
nobody
what?"
knows. They just watched her walk away with this super rebellious, dark soul from, Hollywood.
Well, because he's like, "Oh, she left with Randy." And mom's like, "Who's Randy?"
Yeah,
Nobody has any idea.
no
They're
clue.
they're like, I guess the like a caricature of the hands-off kind of parenting
Big time.
from hippies who are having kids kind of thing.
I do want to note that if you go to the Wikipedia entry for this movie,
Hmm.
it says that the movie was loosely based on Romeo and Juliet.
Yes.
Did you get those vibes at all from this? I
Yeah.
mean, they really? I
Well,
mean,
so
the
for
only thing in common is that they're from two different like walks of life, but a lot of movies do that and it's not a reference to Romeo and Juliet. Nobody kills themselves.
well, you have Randy and Julia.
Okay.
I mean, I
But
think
I
it's pretty
mean,
heavy-handed, honestly. They
yeah,
even
I mean,
there's even in that
there
montage where they're
are there are Romeo and Juliet references. I
yeah,
get that, but I'm saying what are the similarities besides them using coincidental names and the fact that they're just from two different walks of life?
because I don't think it was a coincidence. I think it was all very much on purpose.
Well, you know what I mean. Like it's just there's nothing. Take away the names, and there's really nothing beyond the fact that they're just two different people dating
Well, it's
that
supposed
makes
to
it like.
be that they come from different worlds, and each world thinks they need to stay within their own, and
But that's a story of every romantic comedy that's ever been made.
well, I mean, that's an exaggeration, but like the idea though
It's
is,
not like more than half of the romantic comedy movies that exist have that same premise.
I mean, sometimes I think this one in particular though was supposed to be that like they're dueling walks of life, right? Like that.
Was Notting Hill based on Romeo and Juliet?
I don't know. I didn't see that.
Okay. Well, it's about an actress that dates a normal person.
Okay.
So it's two very different walks of life. I mean, I don't. Every romantic comedy that was made, not everyone, because obviously that's an exaggeration, but a very large majority of romantic comedies movies made in the 90s, especially, were that same premise, and
But
they were not based on Romeo and Juliet.
I'm not saying that it's like a shot for shot or anything, but I think between the basic story, the names, and the fact that they keep showing like the title Romeo and Juliet in the montage later in the movie, I think that's what they were going for. Whether they succeeded, I think is a totally fair criticism, but I
But
think that was the
showing
point.
Romeo and Juliet doesn't make it based on Romeo and Juliet. It's just a reference to.
I don't
Same with
know,
the names,
maybe based on is strong. I think the idea was it was supposed to be kind of inspired by.
I guess. I mean,
I'm not saying they did a
whatever.
good job with that. I'm saying that that was the intention.
So after this diner scene, we get like a montage, a very 80s montage of a
Very.
bunch of dates. At this point, it's very unclear how long they've been dating, but it probably shows at least 10 different dates.
So they do say like a scene or two later, it's 2 months.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, which still felt like a lot for high school kids to be doing,
Yeah,
but I guess things were a lot cheaper in the 80s. I don't know.
maybe. I mean,
Nick
she's
does
got a
have like
job.
six different jobs later in the movie. So
Yeah. We'll have to talk about that because I feel like that's not. Anyway. Um, so
uh,
yeah, we get we get Nick Cage dancing. When he's
yes,
leaving her house at the end of one of the dates, he starts dancing. So that's fun. We get the traditional 80s romantic teen comedy slumber party scene.
felt like right out of Grease.
Yeah, where they're just talking about giving their boyfriends hand jobs and
And
know,
but they're like basically in their underwear. And look, I mean, my sleepovers weren't like that when I was a
you didn't
kid.
hang out in your underwear?
No, we didn't. I don't know. Maybe
Oh,
women, do you do that? I don't know. Let us know if that was just a
or
normal
men. I mean,
thing. I don't
we're
know.
not sexist here. We'll take
No.
traditional men too.
Yeah, it's just, and like the younger sister, I forget whose house they're at, but one of them has like a younger sister who's like 8, and
Yeah.
she's like dancing around with these like
And
teenage
she
girls who are
accidentally hits the record player and fucks the whole thing
Allegedly,
up,
Ryan, allegedly.
and then
She
gets
says she
kicked
didn't do
out.
it. And then they
Yeah.
go and start trying on the mom's like lingerie and
Yeah, it's a really weird scene. It seems like it was a little like self-serving for the people that made the movie. I mean, obviously, maybe
strange.
not the director because the director was a woman, so she probably wasn't like, "Oh, I find this." Maybe she did find these young girls dancing in lingerie very sexy, but I feel like that was more geared to like the male audience specifically, or the male
Yeah.
producers or whatever. It just felt, yeah, like self-servicing kind of scene. That wasn't really relevant to the movie. She's like trying on this lingerie. She's like, "Do you think Randy would like this?" Like, okay, I mean, a little weird. And you would think, to your wife's point about you thought that this thing with her friend and her ex-boyfriend would come out. The diner scene would have been a good place that she mentioned, but also the slumber party
Yeah.
would have been a very traditional place for information like that to come out.
Totally.
But no, no, it's just
Nothing.
a self-serving kind of lingerie teenage girl hand job talk scene.
With some Lay's Ruffles product placement.
Yeah, product placement. They ripped that bag open really weird too. That was bothering me. Did that get to you? Did you notice that?
So my only thought is it happened by accident and they just never replaced it.
The bag, so for people that didn't watch the movie, it was like curved. It had like a rip in it that was curved almost all the way to the bottom of the bag. So they had to constantly angle the bag
Hmm.
so that chips weren't just falling out the front.
Yeah.
It was really weird. And they were passing it back and forth. And every time I was like, oh, chips are gonna be falling. But no, they didn't. It was probably
Mm,
an empty bag, prop bag.
maybe. Yeah.
Um, So then we get a scene of Skip, again, not relevant at all to anything that happens in the story. Um, Walking in on somebody he's delivering groceries or something again. Or no, he just shows
No.
up at their house.
Dude, this scene is messed up.
Yeah, he just shows up at their house and he like kind of knocks on the door and nobody answers. So he just opens the door, walks in,
Which is
and
a
he
pet
hears
peeve of mine, by
a
the way, when people
shower
just
running. He hears a shower running upstairs.
uh-huh.
So he goes upstairs. And we don't know at this point if it's like his girlfriend, because he's dating the daughter, and the stepmom is the one that wants to fuck him.
Well, I mean, he goes into what appears to be the master bedroom
Yeah,
because it's a bathroom in that room. I
right.
think he thinks it's the mom.
I mean, I wrote down walks in on Beth in the shower, and Beth is the
Yeah.
mom, because I thought that's what it was.
Uh-huh.
And so she apparently is thrilled with this. Women do love, so you learn a lot of really good things about women in this movie, and one of them is that they love when people just walk into their house and while they're in the shower go and approach them. They will for sure make love to you after that. So that's one thing we could take away from this movie. Did your wife have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you know what her thoughts were on how ridiculous that whole
Yeah, it
scene
was a
is.
really bad scene.
But then it ends up being not the mom.
Right, like you get some like weird scenes of like the intimacy, the sex stuff, and then yeah, it's revealed that it's the daughter,
So they're
not the
having
mom.
sex in the parents' bed,
So, but does that mean that the daughter goes and takes a shower in their parents' bedroom?
I guess.
The whole thing is like it's very weird.
But then again, that never comes back either.
No,
So,
again, no point to this scene at all, except to have another sex scene in the movie
but
and
like
show some nipples.
that means the whole arc of the mom hitting on the boyfriend with that like whole weird like pedophile triangle thing, there's no conversation or resolution of any kind
No,
for that
but
whole storyline.
there's no conversation or resolution to most of the storylines in this movie. So, you know, that isn't really that surprising.
I mean, that was one of Ray's notes. She said zero
Yeah,
resolutions.
for anything.
Jesus.
Um, so then we get a scene of Julie having a heart to heart with her dad. And I actually liked her dad in this movie, except for that one really creepy ass thing in the beginning.
This was
But
a
her
good
dad
scene
was a
though.
really genuine guy.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed like Julie was raised by a couple parents that do genuinely care about her and want the best for her.
Hmm.
And they get this really good scene where she's trying talks to him about how she's trying to decide between Randy and Tommy and what she should do. And he's basically, just follow your heart, blah blah, blah, the typical thing that parents say. But it's a good scene. It's one of the more like not ridiculous scenes in this movie.
Hmm.
Um, but then she goes to bed. You might know what I'm about to say. It
Is
shows
it
her
what's
in
in the bed
bed.
with her?
Yes. So she apparently sleeps with the world's creepiest fucking doll. And it's like her comfort thing that she cuddles with at night. But it is one of those old school like fabric dolls with like the porcelain face. And it is so creepy.
So creepy.
But she sleeps with it every night because this is not the only scene where it shows it.
And she's like 16, 17. So
Yeah.
she's supposed to be because it's the junior prom, right? So she's 16, 17 in this movie. And she sleeps with this thing. It is the creepiest fucking thing.
Yeah. It's super creepy. But not to her. She loves it. So then we get a scene where Randy is going to her house and uh well she's like told her friends that she's not together with Randy anymore. Everybody
Right.
knows that
She
she's
says it's
not with
over.
Randy anymore, but we as the audience have not seen her break up with Randy. As far
Was
as
this
we know,
the scene at the restaurant though? Does
yeah,
that happen
probably.
first? So she's having lunch with Lauren, and then the other two friends show up, and this is again where like I really hate Stacy. Stacy kind of manipulates.
The whole thing is like a setup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's got Tommy like waiting for Julie to basically say she's done with Randy. And so Tommy comes back in and oh, all the girls leave because they've got class or
Oh,
whatever.
we
And
got to
then
study. Yeah.
she's stuck there with Tommy who like gives her a bracelet or whatever, and he starts eating her food.
Yeah. But she's thrilled with that. Again, dudes, if you see a girl you like and they're eating at a restaurant, just go up and start eating their food and they'll probably be really excited to talk to you.
But you gotta give him jewelry first.
Just another relationship tip for you from this movie, you know?
Valley Girl relationship
Yeah,
tips.
exactly. Um, so yeah, at this point, it seems like she's broken up with Nick Cage or with Randy because she is really into Tommy in the scene. So then we get a scene of Randy showing up at her house, um, and he wants to take her out. He doesn't know that this is, um, that they're broken up. He doesn't
Right.
know what's going on really. Um,
She's
and
pretty mean.
she is super mean. Apparently, where would I read that? I read something about they found this movie or this scene to be okay. Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah, Cage and Foreman found it difficult to do the breakup scene at Julie's front door because it was shot late in the filming when Cage and Foreman were dating. It took several takes and some counseling by Martha Coolidge. She told Foreman to think of another guy she'd broken up with. So yeah, apparently they were dating. Nick Cage had a habit for a long time of dating his co-stars, it seems like. This is not the only one by any means. But
Seems to be a common thing in the industry,
sure, yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
it's not just him, but because he does so many movies, maybe that makes it seem a little more extreme.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they were pretty heavily dating at this point. Um, and I did have a quote, my first, or no, not my first quote, because we had the that other slang term earlier, tripindicular. But my this is the second quote from this movie that I actually wrote down, and this one was "fuck off for sure," like totally, which he says when he's walking down
It
the
was great.
towards his car. He just turns around and like yells that at her.
It was so good.
And then he starts going into like the town where he knows everybody and starts drinking to be totally drunk. And that's also a bingo card space, drinks alcohol. So yeah, we get some. This is actually maybe his first like cagey performance because there wasn't much before this. I mean, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, he didn't really do anything cagey.
But like, I mean, yeah, he's barely in it. He has one
Yeah.
line of dialogue, you know.
But this one, when he gets to do his drunk acting, he does get to act a little more like traditionally cagey, that like what you would expect from him,
Hmm.
which was enjoyable for sure. And then he meets up with his ex, apparently, who we've had no introduction and no backstory on at all at this point, but it's implied that it's his ex because of some, random dialogue
And
and
supposedly she's the one who's on the poster.
a poster for the
So
movie.
yeah, so if you look at the movie poster, that's not Julie.
Right. That's
And
true.
apparently, it's because the movie's budget was so tight, they couldn't pay Deborah Foreman to pose for photography for the poster. So supposedly, it's the ex-girlfriend.
But also on the poster, the outfit that Nick Cage wears, he never wears in the movie, and the thing with his hair is never in the movie.
Though it's a shame because he's basically wearing a vest, no shirt, and a tie. It looks great. I mean,
Yeah, and he has a pink and blue stripe through his hair, and he that's not in the movie at all. So I don't really know what the relevance of the poster is. Even the font choice is kind of weird. Um, but yeah,
yeah. I mean, it says Hollywood, so I guess you know that. I mean, it's a very strange poster when you watch the actual movie,
yeah.
but
So then he goes and hooks up with his ex in the bathroom, mere hours after breaking up with the girl he's been dating with for months. Um, we get some more drunk acting. I have that as a note. Then my next note is jumping into random car with her.
yeah.
What
Yeah,
happened there?
yeah. So he gets sick in the alley and Fred helps him out and all that kind of stuff. So he gets over that. But the next day, like he keeps trying to talk with her. He doesn't understand what happened because she didn't really explain that like she went back with her ex or anything like that or what happened. She just kind of cuts him off. So at one point she gets in a friend's car to
Oh,
go
that's right. Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah.
I don't remember which friend it is because everyone is super forgettable. Another note
And generic.
from
Yeah,
Ray. Yeah, so like I can't keep these people straight. But he just like jumps in the back seat next to her.
trying to have a conversation with her. Yeah.
Yeah, and she yells at him to get out of the car or whatever.
So this is where we get into the thing you mentioned earlier, where he has like six different jobs. I didn't get the vibe that he just like normally has six different jobs. I got the vibe
No.
that he was like trying to stalk her a little, not,
Yes.
the nice version of stalking where he's just trying to like make sure he knows what's going on in her life and be present.
Well, you
Uh,
see, this is the concept of like if she likes it, then it's romantic,
right, exactly. But if it's
right?
not, then it's creepy.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
yeah, I agree with you though. He doesn't actually have all these
yeah.
jobs.
So he's like an usher at the movie theater at one point wearing 3D
It
glasses.
was great.
It
So
actually
good.
felt that was another like Fast Times at Ridgemont High like parallel because one of the main characters in that movie is an usher at a
Yeah.
theater.
Yeah, good
Um,
callback.
and then he's like a waiter.
Yeah, he's like a car hop at some
Yeah,
like drive-in diner, and he's putting on voices for these guys too, though. He's not talking normally.
right. It's like
And
each one is a character.
right, and like Julie, I think knows that it's him. She never says anything. She just
That's
watches
true. It's
Tommy
never
get,
acknowledged.
but she's watching Tommy get humiliated each time or like screwed around with each time. I don't know. It's very weird. Nick's hilarious in it, and I love it, but it's weird.
Yeah. And then it's revealed that he's sleeping outside her window for an undetermined amount of time. We don't know if this was like one night that this happened or if he's been doing it ever since.
I think it was one night because of her reaction to seeing him.
He was like in a sleeping bag on her
Yeah.
lawn right outside her window. And
Uh-huh.
again, like you said, if it was somebody she didn't really like, then it would be stalking and like cause for calling the police,
You would
but
think.
not in this case. And then him and his buddy get this big plan to crash the prom.
Yeah.
So, hmm, I'm just gonna throw it out there that this was one of the weirdest prom scenes I've ever seen in a movie, mainly due to one specific song. There's a live band playing
Uh-huh.
at this prom, and they are a real life band or a real life
Are they?
performer, Josie Colton.
Oh, okay.
It's a real life performer. I don't know if it was a band or if it was just her or what, but in the movie it's a group. Um, but they're playing a song at a prom, at a junior prom, high school prom, and I love 80s music, right? And a lot of the songs in this movie I have never heard before. There was a couple like major hits, but because this
Sure.
movie was 83, it was early 80s anyway, so a lot of the 80s music that we love hadn't come out yet at this
Hmm.
point. But this particular song, the lyrics start going and they start talking about what sounds like is a woman that likes a boy and she's trying to get with him, but he isn't reciprocating feelings, so she assumes that he's gay.
Yeah.
And the song is literally called Johnny, Are You Queer?
And if you don't know that, they'll repeat that line
Because it's
800
the
times.
chorus. It's the chorus of the song. Just because it needs to be brought up. Here's some of the lyrics to that song, if you were curious. Um, when the lights are low, you never hold me close, and I saw you today, boy, walking with them gay boys. God, you hurt me so. I gotta know, Johnny, are you queer? Um, I'm afraid, so afraid I'll lose you if I can't seduce you. Is there something wrong? Johnny, come on strong. Oh, why are you so weird, boy? Johnny, are you queer, boy? When I make a play, you're pushing me away. Johnny, are you queer? And this same kind of like thing repeats throughout the song.
Mhm.
It's just a very odd song.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was a real song, but it is a legitimate real song that came out
Uh-huh.
by an artist that apparently a lot of people like. Um, but it did not age well,
No.
as anybody can
No.
imagine.
I just can't imagine it's all like yes, like I don't like the song at all, but the context makes it even worse. What high school would have okayed that,
Would have been okay with this being a song played at their junior prom
right?
live.
Now, like at the same time, the teachers are kind of shown to be fairly aloof in the rare occasions where we see them. Like there's a couple guys who are clearly spiking the punch, and the teacher tastes it and doesn't notice, and he's just like, "Oh, it tastes flat," or whatever. And then there's the woman who's going to announce the king and queen, and she just like has a complete like nervous breakdown on stage because she didn't get to be queen or something. So like the adults are just like absentee, I guess. I don't know. It was very weird and uncomfortable.
So a little bit of information about the song from the Wiki. There's a Wikipedia specifically for this song.
Okay.
Um, there was a music video made for this song that apparently depicts uh Cotton, Josie Cotton, I think, or was the artist, right? Uh, sitting on
Colton.
a park bench, sitting on a park bench where she makes romantic advances, much to Johnny's discomfort. Critical reception of the song was that it was subject of controversy upon its release. It was accused by multiple conservative groups of promoting homosexuality. And one network claimed that there was no Josie Cotton and that she was actually a gay man who was trying to convert unsuspecting straight men into a homosexual lifestyle.
Jesus.
Um, Years
Uh,
later, AllMusic reviewed the song and noted that in retrospect, the song sounds rather tame, and throughout, the joke is on the petulant girl, not Johnny. Um,
yeah, I mean,
she
I would agree with that assessment.
she apparently stated that since the song's release, she has been contacted by several people who thanked her for the song because it helped them come to terms with their own homosexuality.
Oh, well, that's good. Okay.
It reached number 38 on the Billboard Club Play Singles chart and was mainly featured in Valley Girl specifically and Jackass number 2, which I've seen and I do not remember the song from that movie. But you know,
Fascinating.
yeah. So I know we went deep into that. It was just that's such
No, it's fine.
for a Nick Cage movie. It's such a weird. We've seen a lot of weird shit, but that song, I mean, very weird.
I agree. No, it absolutely is, like, no doubt.
And it
That's very
raises the
strange.
question because on our bingo card we have casual discrimination. Do
Yes,
you think that counts as casual discrimination?
that is very interesting. I need to think about that a little bit. I don't want to say no.
Okay, we'll reveal it on our bingo when we do our bingo episode. So stay
Keijo
tuned for that.
bingo.
Keijo bingo. But just to put it in Derreck's brain, boom. So yes, my note was, is this song called Johnny Are You Queer? And yes, it was. Um, so then he gets in
Uh,
another fight with the bully guy, with the Tommy.
the dude's doing like jump kicks and like I mean you know the
And
names of these moves, I'm sure, but
apparently Tommy is a martial arts master. So they're getting ready to announce prom king and queen. And so they've got like the crowns on backstage. And Nick Cage just shows up and he punches Tommy. Kind of sucker punches him like he got sucker punched earlier in the movie. And then Tommy gets up and literally starts like doing what appears to be very basic martial arts.
yeah. I mean not like a normal high school kid throwing punches.
Right. And so they kind of fight. I don't even remember how it ends because it's not really relevant to anything.
Well, it ends with like the stage, like them being revealed on stage with Tommy on the floor and Randy and Julie are prom king and queen,
Right.
sort
And
of.
so he kind of walks down, yeah, where they when they announce the prom king and queen, he kind of walks down with her. And that's basically where the movie ends.
Well, no, there's a food fight. There's a food fight, and then
Not
Randy and
relevant at all to the
Julie
movie.
steal Tommy's limo and ride off, and that's the end of the movie.
That's what I just said, basically.
It's just there's no ending. Like, okay, so during the prom and even before the prom, Tommy keeps talking to Julie about like a surprise.
Yeah. The
We
surprise was his dick. They talk about how he reserved some room at a hotel, at like a high-end
Oh.
hotel. That's the
Oh.
surprise.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
I mean, it
Thank
was really
you.
subtle, so I'm not surprised you missed it, but
I guess I thought like that was where they had dinner. I didn't think about it being like a
no, no, no.
hotel. I got you now. I
Yeah.
got it.
The
Okay.
bone was the surprise.
Yeah.
So my final note for this movie was me trying to figure out what the message that they were trying to get through with this movie is. And I think I figured it out.
Oh, please.
If a girl tells you no, go beat up her boyfriend at the prom and then you can be prom king.
But only if she secretly likes you.
I mean, I don't know if that's actually a requirement in this movie because there's some people that hook up even though it seems like they don't like each other or one of them doesn't like the other. I mean, really, it's debatable. But yes, that's the end of the movie. That's all I could glean from it in terms of like a message, because everything is weird and there's no plot.
Well, there's no resolution. Like her friends still don't think this is a good idea, right? Tommy is still alive. It's not like he's not around to keep, manipulating things in the background with Stacy.
Right.
And it's like Julie just keeps succumbing to peer pressure, right? It's either, oh, well, I'm going to be with Randy because Randy really likes me, or I'll go with Tommy because my friends want me to go with Tommy. Like, what does she want? I don't even know.
That's a good
I did,
question. Yeah, I don't know either.
I did get a text while we were talking from Ray. She was upstairs. She could hear me. She wanted me to let everyone know that underwear parties were not a normal thing.
But to be fair, she was not a teenager in 1983.
Not in 1983, no, but during her time as a teenager, that was not standard for a Saturday night or what have you. Um, but that's it. So like if you look at the main four girls, I guess you've got Julie ends up with Randy. What are the other girls' names? Lauren, who kind of sort of fooled around with Tommy a little bit, ends up just that never coming out to anybody, so that's just nothing. Um, Susie ends up actually being the only one we see have sex in the movie, and she sleeps
Right.
with Skip instead of Skip sleeping with Susie's mom. And then Stacy, I guess, doesn't end up with Fred. Maybe she does. I don't know.
Maybe.
And that's the movie.
Well, as we've done the last few episodes, it seems like it's been kind of an enjoyment for us. I wanted to read a few reviews from random users on IMDb and Amazon. It's worth noting that on IMDb, there are zero one-star reviews,
Really interesting. It's not rated super high. It's a 6.4.
which is on the higher end of like the general Nick Cage movies, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I just meant this isn't like a
So
9.
here's a two out of ten from Ginger Ale, spelled with J's and not G's. I watched this film after reading the plethora of positive IMDb reviews touting as a Romeo and Juliet for the 80s. And while it does share with the Bard's masterpiece the theme of forbidden teenage love, all similarities begin and end there. Derek, are you paying attention? Filled with pointless storylines, characters on both sides of the divide who are sorely lacking in intellect, depth, and purpose, and an ending that is pathetically lazy and neither intriguing nor romantic, the sorry excuse for a film brings absolutely nothing new to the table and fails miserably at even adding anything interesting, let alone insightful, to a familiar, seemingly straightforward topic. For a truly brilliant take on the complications of love among the young, rich, and shallow, watch Amy Heckerling's Clueless. Itself based much more faithfully on another work of classic literature, yet adapted to not only appeal to, but actually shape the culture of its time. What a shameful insult to William Shakespeare it is, having his timeless work of poetic style and substance compared to this vacuous garbage. Ginger Ale,
Jesus.
I like you. You are a very good way of writing. I appreciate the way that you express those feelings. And I agree with a lot of your points, although I did enjoy the movie overall. I do agree with a lot of your points.
That the movie clearly hurt them.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Um, let's see. On Amazon, we got one from Where's My Angels? 1 star. It was 1983, and I went to see Valley Girl with a date. Only I didn't see it as I was lip locked with my date through the whole movie. So almost 40 years later, I decided to watch it. This movie is beyond awful. Gag me with a spoon awful. I watched the whole movie only because my dog ate my remote control during the movie and I was too lazy to get off the sofa. I will give 5 stars to the costume designer. The only thing I liked was the outfits. Um,
Okay.
Here's a 1 star from Sarah Davis. The casting of the females were all wrong. Most don't look like teenagers, but women in their mid 30s. The mothers looked younger than the children. No wonder, no wonder why one mother was hitting on her daughter's crush. Lots of boobs showing in the film and poorly written. The film was old and looked very old. Nicolas Cage was attractive though.
That's a little harsh. I mean, these women were like 20. They were older than high schoolers, but they weren't 30. I
Yeah,
just
I
want to throw
mean,
that out there. They're like
that's
20.
fair. There was one on IMDb that was a 10-star review that I wanted to read because I knew you'd like it. Where is that one? Um, oh yeah. This is from user totally rad 80, who, based on that username, I would trust them 100% with any recommendation that they give me. Um, I remember seeing this film when I was 13 years old, and I fell in love with it, and I was a big fan of the film and the characters I adored. My favorite character was Stacy because she made me
What?
laugh when she showed no interest in Fred, who really liked her, and I was hoping in the end they would get together, but then her boring boyfriend Ralphie, because he
I
ignored her and hung out with his friends. I love the cast and the story. I always love the part when Fred tried to get together with Stacy, and I always remember when he chased her around the car. But it was so good. I'll always remember cherish that in my teen years. Now that I am 33 years old and I picked up my copy on DVD and will look forward to seeing it. Noting that this review was written in 2003. So
so they
there's
wrote
that.
they wrote the review 20 years after they saw the movie and they saw it when they were
And that
13.
was 20 years ago. So
Yeah,
21 years ago.
I would be curious to know what their thoughts were on it when they rewatched it as an adult.
Yeah,
I'm sure, yeah, because like here's the thing, right? I'm sure if I had watched it when I was 13, my opinion of the movie would be different because I was a kid. I was a 13-year-old boy, and let's face it, there is nudity in the movie, right? I probably would have enjoyed myself. But as like an adult now, closing in on 40, I have other concerns.
fair enough. Another 10 out of 10. This is a romantic. This is from Gaius Inghen, something like that, on IMDb. This is a romantic, albeit cheesy movie that is one of my all-time favorites. It's one of the many classics of the 80s genre, like Pretty in Pink or Some Kind of Wonderful. Nick plays the traditional punk guy in love with a traditional valley preppy girl, Julie. It is a heartwarming love story that makes you root for him to win the girl in the end. True, most of the acting sucks, but I have been in love with Nick since seeing this in theaters and have seen nearly every movie he's been in since. He's really grown as an actor, but it is obvious in this early movie of his that he had a lot of potential. Okay, so I'm just going to go out on a limb. This was written in 2004, that review was, that this person has not seen nearly as many Nick Cage movies as they think they have. Saying that you've seen almost every movie he's been in, since 1983, and this was written in 2004, you would have had to seen a lot of
A
movies.
lot of movies at a
And I'm
time in
pretty sure
which,
you didn't.
and like this was pre-streaming, so they wouldn't have been super easy to get. Because we've had trouble even today with some of these.
It's true.
I wonder if they've seen Zondali,
I mean, probably, honestly. That one I think is somewhat popular.
but that was
Um,
before some other one, Prisoners of the Ghostland,
that's true.
Pig,
That's true. Anyway, that was just some of the more entertaining reviews.
That's fun.
Yeah, I there wasn't as much meat on the bone for this one because there's a lot of 10-star reviews out there and not a lot of like low reviews for whatever reason. I mean, the people that really like this movie. I can understand why. I think we look at it from a more critical sense a lot of the time, and when you listen to this podcast, it could easily seem like we didn't like the movie. I don't know if that's true for Derek. I would assume he enjoyed it, but I did enjoy the movie despite all the flaws. I think that a lot of things I enjoyed about it more than Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I still think I would rate Fast Times higher than
Really
this movie, but not
interesting.
by much. I think Judge Reinhold was really good in Fast Times.
I agree with that.
Um, so I mean, for me, I just like him a lot, and so and I love Nick a lot, and he's really what makes this movie almost as good as Fast Times for me. But I don't know if it quite tops that.
That's fair. I do have a couple interesting facts, one of which I think you'll find particularly interesting. Michelle Pfeiffer was supposed to be Julie,
I think she would have been a better Julie, but
so that's interesting. I don't know why that didn't work out. I know that the budget for this movie apparently was like $350,000, so they had like no money.
in
Um,
1983, that was a shit ton of money.
I mean, I don't know that that was a shit ton of money. I mean, I think Indiana Jones was getting a lot more than that.
Was it?
I mean, what do you think the budget for Indiana Jones like Raiders was? I
Well, let's
mean,
look up what $350,000 in 1983 money is for today.
okay, you go ahead and do
Yeah,
that.
you keep going on your
Uh,
interesting facts.
so the only other interesting fact is so Martha Coolidge, she was the director. She said that the producers required her to show female breasts at least 4 times in the movie to attract the young male demographic. And so the reason they're so quick is that there was no restrictions on how long they had to be on screen. So she did it kind of as quickly as she possibly could to fulfill that requirement. So I thought that was interesting. So she clearly was trying to steer away from the kind of exploitative TNA movie. And, I think she probably did as best as she could.
Yeah, that's probably accurate.
And then
Um,
apparently the soundtrack for this movie does not include any actual punk rock. Now, I am certainly no expert. I'm not particularly great with subgenres of music. So anybody out there, like, is there really no punk rock in this movie? Is that really true? Apparently just new wave and post-punk. I don't know the differences between those, but that is interesting if true.
So Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom had a budget of 28 million, which was a lot. But it was also a major studio movie. This was not, and it was I mean, if you look at the subject matter of Indiana Jones, it requires a lot more money. This movie is
Sure,
a high school teenage movie. If
but
you
like I
put that
think
into today's money, it's almost $2 million
which is still
with
fairly low
inflation.
budget,
It
you know.
is, but in 1983 they weren't spending a lot of money on movies in general unless it was a blockbuster, which this was never going to be a blockbuster.
But like Evil Dead 2, I think was 550,000, if I remember right.
And what year was that?
82,
Was it?
I think
Uh,
so. I'm pretty confident in
I'm not
that.
great with budgets, so it
And
just
then
seems like I could have made this movie for, a lot less than $350,000 today. But
I don't know, maybe it cost like the sets like to shoot on location and stuff costs,
maybe,
money. I don't know.
yeah, a lot of
My,
cocaine.
my wife can hear everything we're saying, so she's like messaging me things. So she says yes, there's no punk in the movie. So there you go.
Okay. It's always great when we like have to go back 5 minutes to a thing we were talking about because you get a text.
Well,
Okay, so we need to rate the movie on
okay.
caginess and on what else,
Quality.
Derek? Quality. Yeah, there you
Quality.
go.
Yeah.
Um, Well, you usually do this part, but because you're having to text message, I feel like I need to pick up the slack here.
I'm not responding.
Well, you are, just not directly. Um, so yeah, Derek, where do you put this movie on quality?
Okay, so we've been comparing it a lot, of course, to Fast Times, and so I just want to quickly see. I We gave Fast Times a 10. I actually like this more than Fast Times personally, so I think I'm going to give this a 12.
You said we gave Fast Times a 10.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, maybe I did enjoy this more than Fast Times then, because this is a little higher than I feel like this is higher than a 10 for me.
So for
I don't think,
comparison, if you're interested, we gave Season of the Witch a 12.
yeah.
We both did.
I would probably put this at an 11 then,
Okay.
because I feel like I must not have enjoyed Fast Times as much as maybe I thought I did, but this movie I did enjoy overall, so I think it deserves to be a little higher than that.
Cool.
So
All right.
we're
So
pretty close.
yeah, 11 and a half there then. Caginess is interesting because obviously he's in this, throughout most of the movie. There are some key cagey moments. There's the little dance he does. There's
Drunk acting.
the drunk acting for sure. There's the little quote that you had, earlier where
Oh
he's
yeah,
mocking the Valley Speak or Val Speak or whatever it is.
right.
I don't want to go too high, of course. It's not like a ton or anything.
And this is his first role as a leading man,
It
so
is,
the fact that there's any caginess at all, and you can see the sparks in the early days.
which is pretty cool. I mean, I kind of want to maybe throw it in the middle and give it a 10.
Yeah, I was thinking an 8,
Okay.
but we're both pretty that's pretty close. So I think a 9 is a reasonable place for it. I think it's still a little less cagey than the average Cage movie,
Hmm.
but probably not much so.
No, that's fair. So an 11 and a half out of quality and a 9 on caginess. And then we need to decide which movie is going to join our Wheel O Cage. So we have a wheel that we spin that picks our movies. And the Nicolas Cage movie that's going to replace Valley Girl and join the wheel, is Arcadian. So Arcadian is just now on streaming. It's his latest movie. It's a horror flick. So that is now eligible and has joined the wheel. So to find out which Nicolas Cage movie we're going to talk about next, you'll have to watch our Wheel O Cage, but that will be delayed because episode 51 of our show is going to be more of a recap, look back on our first 50 Nicolas Cage movies. We're going to have some questions for each other. We're going to talk about some of our favorites, talk about some of the ones we didn't like, things like that.
Maybe we'll post something out there on social media to say, for people that have questions about the movies that we've watched or something. If you want to contribute, then feel free.
Yeah, so definitely like please like let us know what your favorite movies are or if you have any fun or interesting facts about these movies maybe we're unaware of. That's always cool to shoot our way.
It seems unlikely, but hey, you can try.
You never know who's listening out there.
Take your shot.
We could get lucky. Maybe Fred is listening right now,
Maybe.
you
Maybe
know.
Tommy's listening. Or he's actually just leering at us across the room.
Yeah. Hopefully the fact that I think he looks like Will Forte didn't hurt his feelings, but it
I
was
don't know how
distracting.
that would.
It was very distracting to
Yeah,
me. I don't know
fair enough.
why, but yeah, so go to comingofcage.com or follow us at Coming of Cage to find all of our other stuff. You'll find our Wheel O Cage, our Cage O Bingo series where you play bingo to our Nicolas Cage movies, and all now 50 reviews of various Nicolas Cage films, which Ryan, I mean, that's a big milestone.
It is a big milestone. It doesn't feel like it's been 50 films, but we'll get more into that on the recap.
That's right. That's right. But man, 2 years. We've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah, that feels about right.
That's pretty cool. That's good
Yes,
stuff.
very cool.
Just taking in the moment,
Fair
right?
enough. Well,
You
we're
know,
gonna really get to celebrate that with the next episode. So,
that's right. All right. Well, anything else then on Valley Girl?
tripindicular.
Tripindicular.
Is that what it was? I don't remember.
I think close enough. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Tripindicular. Yeah, I think that was it.
Tripindicular. Yeah, yeah, tripindicular.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time.